here with?
I'm Mattia Maria Puccio, and I'm a notary acting in the province of Quebec with my own little practice in the Montreal region.
So what often happens is when we are at the point of getting to the notary, we think that all our questions are answered and we've asked everything that we can think of. But often, both vendors and purchasers forget a lot of information or don't know exactly how the notarial process works.
So there are three things that I'm going to broach for each the vendor and the purchaser that we should all take a look and remember when you're going through the process of buying or selling your home.
So for the purchaser, what are the three things that the purchaser often forgets?
So the number one thing that we always have to remember is that you have to carve out time to take 2 appointments with your notary. The reason why is if you're purchasing with a mortgage, you have to meet us the first time to sign your actual deed of mortgage and the second time to sign the deed of sale. So make sure your schedule allows for this the week that you're purchasing your property.
How much time do you usually need between the two?
You need a good 48 hours. The reason why is that at our first appointment, you will be bringing your down payment, which has to sit in our trust account for a minimum of 48 hours.
That's very important to know. What's the second thing that we should know?
The second thing you should know is that your down payment doesn't just cover the difference between your sale price and your mortgage. You have to take into account other adjustments that will be done with the notary. Primarily, you're going to have to pay your portion of the existing municipal and school taxes because the vendor is not responsible to pay for the whole year-end process. If you're purchasing a condo, make sure that you also include your portion of the condo fees for the month that you're purchasing in, as well as it's your responsibility as a purchaser to pay for the notary fees and a copy of the deed for the vendor.
And what's the third thing that we should know?
So when you come to the notary, there are certain documents that we'll be asking you for. So number one, come with 2 pieces of ID. They should be government issued and non-expired. As well, it's our job to verify your matrimonial status. So if you're married, divorced, civilly united, or widowed, we need a proof of this. So whether it be a marriage contract, a marriage certificate, your divorce judgment, make sure that you have these handy and ready for the notary.
And do they have to be originals?
They don't have to be originals. As long as it's a copy, we'll be able to verify it. We have to conserve it in our file and make sure that when you're purchasing, we know of your capacity and your ability to sign that deed of sale.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Those are really important things for a buyer to know. What are the 3 things that you need to know as a seller when you go to the notary's office?
So that's a great question. The number one misconception with sellers is that they have no notaries to pay when they come to the closing. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a cost for a seller at the notary closing. The reason why is because the seller is in charge of paying for their discharge of their existing mortgage. So any discharge fees is at the seller's responsibility. As well, it's the seller who's responsible to make sure that I have the proof that the municipal and school taxes are paid. So when we request the payout statements from the city and the school board, those costs are also associated to the vendor.
Is it also the vendor's responsibility to pay the co-ownership if they're in a condo?
So it's not the responsibility to pay that if they have the true copies. So you need to have the original copy done by the notary with the seal and his signature. If you don't have that, unfortunately, you will have to pay to get true copies of those.
It's very important to preserve your originals after your notary appointment.
All the time. People always forget that and they toss them to the side not to remember. But when you're coming to sell your property, those documents always follow the immovable. So any previous title deeds, the original certificate of location, the original co-ownership agreement, that must go to the purchaser.
Okay, that's great. And what's the second thing?
The second thing is that you come, you sign your deed of sale, you give your keys to your buyer, and you're expecting your check. But unfortunately, there's a little bit of a delay from when you get your check when you sign. The reason why is that the notary has the responsibility to publish the sale at what we call the registry office, where everything becomes public. Once that sale is registered without any adverse entries, then we're able to get you your check, which means that you will have to make a trek back to your notary a few days after closing to get your check.
A few more days here or there really doesn't make a difference.
Of course not, but it's always a little bit of a disappointment for some.
Absolutely. What's the third thing that's important to know?
The third thing to know is that when you're selling your home, you want to make sure that your certificate of location is up to date. Because if it's not valid, unfortunately, that will also be a cost that you have to pay to furnish a new one to your new purchasers. There's a few criteria in order to determine if it's valid. Number one, you want to make sure that it's on the correct cadastre number. You want to make sure that it reflects the current state of the property. which means if you've added a balcony, if you you added a window, all these changes will mean that you need a new certificate of location. And last but not least, make sure that it's always under 10 years old. The second it hits 10 years, you kind of want to get a new one.
Of course, it's important to have all valid documents when going to the notary's office.
Most definitely.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.